Hi, this is 3 minute spanner tutorial, part 14, Join and Separate. As I mentioned earlier in the previous tutorial, Object Mode is the mode where you organize your scenes, and Edit Mode is for you to edit particular one object. And somehow you might want to put two objects into one object. That's where join function come into place. For instance, I may create two more group objects and then suddenly I feel like I want them to become one. So I just choose all the objects and then press Ctrl J. And then now they become one object. And if you try to rotate, scale and grab the object, they will all interactive at the same times, and all based on their origin point. So to set origin point in the middle of the object is quite essential, which I have mentioned in my previous tutorial, and you'll get what I mean in the futures. And now we can try to tap on the edit mode, and then because they become one object, we can edit these three groups at the same times. But however, there's another situation that you might want them to interact with each other, but you don't want them to become one object. This situation quite often happens, so it's good to know how to use parent function. Now I just put it back to the default startup, and then I create two more objects. Now parent function is just like what it means. In this three objects, we choose one as a parent, and then the other two will become the child of this object. Now we just try to choose these three objects, and then I'm not sure whether I have mentioned that the last one you choose we call the active object, which is in the yellow color. The active object is where we apply our function to it. So in this case, we're trying to apply the parent function on this last object. Now we press Ctrl P to make this object as the parent. Now if we try to move the parent object, you can see that the child object will move at the same times. And now we can try to rotate the parent object, and you can see that the parent object is rotating itself, but the two other child objects is rotate around the parent object. And then you can try to scale the parent object, and then you see the child object scale at the same time as well. And then you can see there's a little dot line between the child and the parent. That's the indication that these two objects have a relationship. But there's one thing to remember of. If we try to move the child object or rotate it or scale it, it won't affect the parent object. And even more, they still separate object. That means if we want to edit the object, we have to click each of the object individually. This function is quite normally used in Blender. For instance, if you try to create a car, and sometimes you divide the car in many separate parts, maybe the windows, the car door, the back seat, but you don't really want them to actually separate, so you may use the structure of the car as the parent, and then you put all the other